Good afternoon, everyone. Firstly, my apologies for English speaking. It's great coming to an event where I actually don't really understand an awful lot, but funnily enough, it doesn't matter what language we speak in this world. When it comes to tech and knowledge, it all works across all channels. A proud statement called Drink More Water. And if we'd got half an hour now, I talk about the ability for us to ask you how many of you are drinking 1 to 2 liters of water every day. And I can promise you the number's pretty low. So waterdrop has been around for 7 or 8 years. Many of you know it. We operate across 4 platforms. The most important part of the platform that we obviously do is our D2C business. And for many of you operating in Shopify, that's the straightforward one. But actually, retail is where we grow. And Shopify would probably call us one of the brands where we've really made an omnichannel experience. Now, I'm going to see if my slides will work. Oh, there we are. So I'm not going to talk through my slides, and if you want a copy of anything or you want to see anything, just find me on LinkedIn, and I promise I'll reply and talk to you. One of the reasons I come to events like this when I'm asked to and persuaded to, in this case, Ferry at Open Fiscal, who saved our life this year in terms of our fiscalization, we really want to make sure that we spread good practice. And good practice for us is making sure that as an e-com business or as a retail business, we do the very, very best we can, because it's out there tough to get more customers. So we create that little drop, and actually when waterdrop came to its fruition as a D2C company, we obviously then subsequently became on marketplaces, obviously in B2B, and actually retail, which for a lot of companies is one of the toughest things to be able to do. So if I wasn't here today, I would be in Maasmechelen in Belgium. And actually, that's where we're opening a store today. It's store number 42 today. And if you've got nothing to do tomorrow, you can come and see me in Bruges, because that's number 43 tomorrow. And it keeps on going. And actually, what I would say out of all that we do, the one thing I never think about, is whether Shopify can power us. And for most companies, that's one of their biggest dread, is being able to do it. But we can plug in and actually get going quickly and possibly. Now, in terms of, was that déjà vu, that wasn't it? Sorry, I have to get some British humor. So when retail came about, you may say to us, well, actually, it's a very costly part of doing the business. And actually, retail is the most costly part of doing any business. But the difference of our retail business is really, really simple. It is all about experiential and loyalty. We personalize all those visits that customers shop with us. And without us having Shopify to be able to do that, we would not have the business to be able to build future long-term customers. So for those that know me, and for those that don't, you'll know that retail is tough, and I'm quite a tough retailer when it comes to it, and that is all about standards. And one of the things that we have a beauty of being able to do is to be able to have the same standard everywhere in the world. So I've given you a quick little map here. It goes out of date pretty often. That's why we always put 40 stores, and it always goes between 40 and 45, or pop-ups and everything that goes with it. But I would say if you are thinking of going into retail, think carefully. Think very carefully, because there's a lot of retailers out there looking as if they made it look very simple. And I can promise you it isn't simple. So we're in 12 countries for retail. So my average day is currently in the morning talking to our pop-up team in Japan and Australia. And then we subsequently then get on to Europe. I'm glad to say that Germany is our biggest business, and we keep on growing that. And then later in the day, we then talk to our US business, and then everything else that comes up in between. But what I would say is, if you are opening a retail business, and one of the things that we learned, don't go too quickly, don't go too wide, and actually think about what your standards are. And one of the standards for me is all about doing things with quality. I don't have the ability to talk at length about everything that we do, but what I would say is that what waterdrop is really key about in our business, and that is having credibility. Now, you've all read the articles about Shane obviously getting a store in Paris coming up, which has obviously upset every traditional retailer. But that is about credibility. And actually, if you are a D2C brand, one of the ways that you can get credibility and build your country's business is to open a bricks and mortar store. And then you've got to understand what you do. And it's no longer possible just to design a store on a piece of software on your laptop and call it a store and say it's great. You've got to be able to have a purpose, have an ability to really create meaningful moments of customer experience. When we went out to look at retail, we actually needed to make sure that we were in global. There's no point us having over 40 stores if actually those 40 stores are not creating future wealth. So the customer comes into our store, will hopefully have absolutely amazing global service standards. And that's the same standard everywhere in the world. They'll then hopefully be converted into a great customer. And that's where Shopify starts to play the part. Number one, we don't spend a lot of money. Actually, if we wanted to put the most expensive till systems in to do POS for us, we could. But actually, it's not doing any more than we really needed to do in the first place. So what we did when we went out to do that, to say that actually POS needed to be a really good part of our business, and being a good part of our business meant we didn't spend money on that because we could spend money on this. And this is the part about the credibility. So the customer watching tennis gets to see what we're doing. And actually whether that is also maybe into skiing, but certainly for us, we decided that tennis was the way to go for it. We're very lucky to have Novak Djokovic as our investor and previous global ambassador. So when you open doors and talk to landlords in centres, you have a voice straight away. So for me, one of the big things that we've really worked about is to try and make sure that Shopify has helped us create long-term value customers. You can go online, you can check out as a guest, and that is as good as the customer experience needs to be online these days. You can walk into a shop. Any store will do whatever it needs to do. You can transact, walk out with your purchase, and that will do. You know, most people are quite happy. But actually, if you're going to come into waterdrop, we want to try and make sure that we're trying to teach you purpose. Why do you drink more water? Why do you need to reduce sugar? Why do you need a natural caffeine drink compared to an artificial caffeine drink? Why do you need electrolytes? And what we try to do when we've done that is to create purpose. That customer gets registered into our Shopify system. We work with Klaviyo, we work with various other systems, and then we can talk to the customer in a meaningful way. That means we can talk omnichannel. And if you are working in teams, one of the questions to go back to your teams, for me, is what is the difference between multi-channel and omnichannel? For most of you, I don't need to tell you. But for a lot of people working in marketing and working with brand, that for me is one of the key takeaways in retail these days, is to make sure that what you do online, what you do in your store, and then what do you do in terms of the parts that you can't control, like your B2B or your wholesale business. Because then that's where it can actually go in a different way. Finally, one simple word about big sponsorship projects. And it's where you can go beautifully right or beautifully wrong. We took on too much in our early stages of working with opening too many stores and not making sure that we were not using Shopify for its best abilities. We got to a point there we needed to really get our house in order, get our quality standards up, things like fiscalization. My bit of advice is never think that you are above the law, because I promise you are not. And I would have said that record keeping, getting standards right, training your people, opening your stores right, paying your bills right, is really fundamental. Some companies do it very well. Some companies spend a lot of money on it. Use technology to get it done right so that your teams can spend money on the most important thing, which is the consumer. The final bit of work I've done, and that gives you an idea of really globally where we do things, and that is the Australian Open. So waterdrop is one of the sponsors. So after just over 8 years in the business, we are now one of ATP's major sponsors for Australian Open. And to give you a breadth of, you can imagine us designing bottles, designing retail stands. We have 13 retail kiosks for this event next year. And actually then getting a team trained on the ground to actually open, trade to a standard, make money, sort of obvious, and actually come back with a beautiful experience that is then shown on every television screen, watching tennis all the way through that really dismal months at the beginning of the year when you really want a holiday. And we see waterdrop absolutely everywhere. That gives you that 360 approach to how a business really needs to work. And it's fun. And don't ever, yeah, it doesn't feel like it some days, but one of the things that I will always say about the teams is produce a really high standards, raise the bar really high so your teams know where to go to. Do it consistently all the way in your business, and you will have an incredibly successful omnichannel business. Thanks very much, everyone.